Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another HD broadcast. Today we're going to be looking at a Protoss versus Terran matchup here on Blistering Sands, and I can't wait to introduce the players. We have none other than Huck playing as the blue Protoss, and a lot of players consider Huck to be pretty much the #1 Protoss player in North America. Indeed, his rating on ladder, I think, is the best Protoss of all. He might just be right behind Select in terms of actual ladder points. And one interesting note about Huck, in case you guys, want to know a random fun fact, Huck's name derives from the Korean word Huck, obviously, and it actually means kind of like haha or LOL. So Huck is a commonly used term in Korean, which basically means kind of LOL. And I hope my translation there was correct, because somebody just told me that a few days ago. And so yeah, that's where Huck gets his name from. And I actually had the pleasure of meeting this guy at Raleigh, where by the way, he took first place at that event in Starcraft 2. And he's a pretty short guy, but he has a great heart, a very powerful Protoss player, and like I said, arguably the best in North America. Now, his opponent on the other side of the map is going to be the Terran forces. So it is going to be a good old Protoss versus Terran, and already starting off the battle here with the traditional probe, zap the SCV, and then get out of there as soon as the shields wear down, which actually that probe took a lot of damage. But Sajer, I don't know this guy. I've never casted a game of him before, but presumably a pretty good player, since he's playing against Huck, obviously. And I think this might just be a ladder match rather than any kind of a custom game. It might be a CG. But there goes Huck going in once again with his probe, trying to do whatever damage he can to that SCV, but he will not be able to take it down. Keep in mind, anytime a Terran player loses their barracks early on, that is such a huge loss, because, or not the barracks, but the SCV building the barracks, because that is such a huge setback, forcing you to get another SCV on the barracks, and of course slowing production time on your first building. Never a situation that any Terran player wants to be in. So it is going to be the familiar Terran forces versus the exotic ET-like warriors over here in the bottom left. Both players here, both races striving for victory on Blistering Sands. I like how Huck has hidden his scouting probe here in the back of the enemy Terran's base, and this is really the best position he can put it in, all the way right next to the weeds, and then he's going to bring it in later to scout out what Sajer's up to. Now, Sajer has not walled off this ramp of his at the front door, and I really don't think... There's a certain amount of maps where I don't think walling in is wise, and this is one of those maps where I don't think walling in is wise. And the reason for that is because Protoss players can bust down this backdoor rock, and then what does your wall in avail to? Absolutely nothing. So I really like how Sajer is kind of building his buildings around his main. I think that's going to make him a lot less vulnerable to a backdoor attack from the Protoss player Huck. Huck now is going to be getting some kind of building. What's his tech going to be? Oh, a robotics facility. He's going to be going straight for a robotics off of Gateway. So wow, really focusing down on getting technology rather than going for a standard kind of macro up. He's really racing to get that robotics facility out. And due to that, he will get an early observer. He might even go for fast one base Colossus. All of them are possibilities. And Sajer here, interestingly enough, oh, there goes the probe, getting killed by the Marine and SCV. Sajer, interestingly enough, is getting a reactor. So he's not favoring getting a tech lab first, which is typically the standard way to play. Get a tech lab, go for an early Marauder versus Protoss, which deals with any gateway unit fairly easily. But instead, no, Sajer is going to be getting mass Marines to cover his front door. And with these Marines, he can actually mobilize and cover the front and the back. And now he's actually upgrading his technology up to a factory with Tech Lab. So he will be getting siege tanks against Huck in this game. Huck now chrono boosting the Observer out. Observer is, of course, going to give Huck all the intelligence he needs. He's going to be able to move that in there, use his high advanced technology against these lowly Terrans. He's going to be able to find out exactly what the Dominion forces are up to. All the way at the top right here on Blistering. Sajer also has a Marine placed fairly well, getting a second factory down. I guess he's really focusing on playing mech style this game, and he's going to be using heavy siege tanks against Huck. Now, the nice thing is, with that reactor, the barracks essentially acts as a double barracks, and I think Sajer here is going to have an opportunity to do a lot of damage to Huck. Huck is going to be he's going to try to secure his natural. His income is slightly ahead of the enemy Terran, And he's now just gotten his observer in, but I don't know. This is a pretty menacing force from Sajer. Currently at 45 food, Huck at 41. And since Sajer has so much more production facilities, keep in mind this is like 2 factories and 2 barracks, all producing tanks and marines. I think Sajer might have an opportunity to attack, and Huck is going for a fast nexus, or at least a nexus, which is going to leave Huck a little bit vulnerable to an early counterattack from his opponent. He's also getting a robotic support bay, which I'm trying to find. There we go. So Huck is trying to get Colossus out with this build. Very fast robotics, trying to go for a fast Colossus. I don't know, he might be vulnerable to all these marines and tanks. He is pushing out with 4 of his stalkers. Let's see what kind of damage the Protoss player is going to be able to inflict on the Dominion forces today. He's pushing up the ramp. He's going to encounter a wall of marines and tanks though, and that is going to force the fallback. No good for Huck, as his Protoss army tried to push forward the army from Ire, but they encountered tough resistance from the Terrans, and now Sajer has a lot of marines and tanks. He can definitely push out. I think he's got a window of opportunity here, and keep in mind the best time to attack the enemy when they expand is right when the Nexus finishes, before saturation hits that Nexus, because that entire time was devoted to getting a Nexus up. There is no benefits that have been reaped out of the Nexus, and now's the time for Sajer to attack. Great timing on Sajer here. Like I said, he's busted out SCVs, presumably they're on auto repair. No, not yet. But this is going to be a pretty devastating counterattack to Huck. I don't know if he's prepared. He is getting 1 Colossus out, nearly finished. He's also trying to get extended thermal lance. That will help immensely if he can use the Colossus on this high ledge above against the tanks and marines. Sajer, though, really has a huge advantage pushing forward here, really attacking when the window of opportunity is best. He's hesitating a little bit at the center of the map, but no, here we go. He's going to push forward, going front with an SCV first, just to test the waters. Poor SCV, no one wants to be the guinea pig, but that guy drew the shortest straw today. He gets taken out, and now Sajer at the front with his marines and tanks. There's even probes pulling off for Huck, so Huck could lose a lot of his workers here. Workers careening forwards towards the marines and tanks. Tanks just do so much damage, even post-nerf. The one thing, though, that Sajer does have to be careful about are these Zealots, and the Zealots are still very good against marines, and of course they take even less damage from tanks now. But Sajer holds on. He kills off several probes. Look at Huck right now, 22 under 29, and now Huck very, very much in deep, deep trouble. You never want to be in the position where the enemy Terran has tanks right here at your choke, and he's got marines starting to shell at the Nexus. All that Huck has is these 2 Colossi. Is it going to be able to hold off against marines and tanks? Oh man, some of the marines getting roasted there. Sajer even getting an engineering bay and erecting missile turrets. So to add insult to injury, these missile turrets of course can shoot the Colossus because they're so tall that they do count as air units as well. And the Nexus now, the shields have been depleted. Damage starting to shell on and pack onto that Nexus. Huck doesn't want to lose that natural expansion. Pushing out with Zealots. They're charging forward against the tanks. Zealots still so good against tanks. And Huck noticeably keeping his Colossi alive. But the Zealots not strong enough to push forward into the deep, dark line of these tanks. And the Terran forces today, they're about to stick their flag into the Protoss territory and claim victory. I don't know if Huck has enough to hold on right here. He needs more Colossi. He's trying to desperately chrono boost them out, but the tanks are in range of shelling the Nexus. The Nexus now in yellow. Huck pushing forward with his Zealots first. The Colossus gets focused down. Sajer there telling his siege tank to hit the Colossus instead of focusing the Zealots down first. Takes out one of the Colossi. And now Sajer, oh, he is going to lose that tank. So very, very micro-intensive game at this point in the game. Huck really averaging 185 APM, and I just gotta call attention to how Huck is using his Colossus to the maximum. Look at the health on these Colossi. 57 health on this one, and 14 health on this one. And wow, Huck has been just playing so well. He's been keeping his Colossi alive, just barely keeping them out of harm's way, and then pulling them back when they're in the red, so they're still very much a formidable force. But I don't know, has Huck been able to catch back up in economy? He has. He's been using his double Nexus to chrono boost out probes. And Sajer's actually pulling off a lot of SCVs, so pretty much all in at this point for Sajer. He wants to break down that Nexus. He knows if he can take it down, then victory is within the Dominion's grasp. He's throwing up turrets once again. turrets. Once it's so good against Colossus. I just can't reiterate that. But here we go. Huck pushing forward with his Zealots. His Colossus laser beaming everything from the back. But the siege tanks can range against Colossi. One of the Colossus getting pulled back. A superb micro from Huck right there, getting his Colossus out of harm's way at the last possible second. And once again, keeping the Colossus alive, even though they're in the red. I think Huck there just bought a little bit more time. He was able to kill the Marines, kill the missile turrets, kill the bunker that was getting built up, and his Nexus is going to remain alive. And that secondary Nexus is what's keeping Huck in this game. It's the core essential component for the Protoss forces here if they want to remain alive against the constant Terran shell, the constant Terran shelling from just outside the natural. 44 Harvesters over 32. Once again, Huck pulling off ropes to get rid of this frontal tank so his Nexus can stay alive. He still has 3 Colossus. This one getting pulled back once again. Huck is just microing so well in this game. Oh my goodness. Does he have enough to finally break these tanks? I think he does. Those 2 Zealots are in range, and they're just side-blading those tanks down. Whoosh, whoosh, just like ninjas. And oh, 1 Colossus will get taken out. I like that, that target firing from Sajer. Maybe it wasn't target firing there, but nevertheless, Huck now can breathe a sigh of relief. He has killed off the enemy Terran forces, and now he finally can get some map control, and this is where the Protoss economy really kicks in. It's what kept Huck in the game against that constant Terran harass, the Terran contained just outside of his base. It was looking really grim there for Huck for about 5 minutes, but somehow, some way, the Protoss forces from Ire just courageously fighting forward, battling and winning that battle and killing off the Terran contain. Now that double Nexus is really going to kick in. 51 over 37. Sajer is finally now building up more buildings. He's been fielding that attack out of only his 2 factories and his barracks with the reactor this entire game. Ever since the beginning, he never produced more buildings. He just now got 2 more barracks down. And he's trying to erect some form of a defensive grid outside both the rocks and the natural expansion. This is why it's so tough for Terrans to play on this map, in my opinion, because of these rocks. It's forcing Sajer to push out, to hold on if he wants a chance to win this game. Oh man, Huck now has full map control, and he didn't really lose. Well, he lost a lot of Harvesters actually, but with that double Nexus really kicking in now, I don't know, Huck really definitely has map control, and he's going to start to push forward now with this Colossi. I just gotta call attention to Huck's incredible Colossi control. Look at these 2 Colossi. This guy right here, the ones in the red, you know that they're in the red because they are masters of battle. This guy's a mentor with 7 kills, a measly 11 health, and this one at 13 kills is an instructor, which is kind of a lame name, but has 5 kills. So Huck really keeping those Colossus alive wherever possible. Insanely good micro from our Protoss player, averaging 175 APM. Now notice this, Huck splitting his armies into 2 different balls to engage the Terran encampment right outside the natural and the rocks, and Huck is going to be able to push forward and establish victory today. But I just want to call attention to this final battle here. Notice how he split his forces. All too often, Protoss players don't split. They just kind of leave their massive army in one tightly compacted ball, and that can be very difficult to deal with siege tanks. So I really like how Huck spread out his units, used his Protoss skills to just push forward and spread them out, and then really mitigate that siege splash damage. So unfortunately, if you're a Dominion fanboy today, unfortunately the Terran forces lose, and they do not claim victory here on Blistering Sands. Protoss forces from Ire win. Huck controlling these forces to the maximum potential, especially those Colossus, keeping them alive even though they were in the red, and staving off early Terran aggression. Even though the Terran had to contain right outside this natural, he was able to hold it off. Nexus in the orange. What a great game, and the Protoss players will take, the Protoss forces will take a victory today. So good game, Huck, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that broadcast. If you guys like what you see, make sure to tell your friends, and of course hit that big cute yellow subscribe button on the front of my channel page. That is the best way to support me. So thanks a lot guys once again for tuning in, and stay tuned for more commentaries to come. HD signing out.